Good evening and welcome to our webinar, Building and Maintaining Positive Partnerships with Your Child's School. My name is Angela Sullivan, Medical Project Specialist, and I will be your moderator for this evening. This webinar is being provided as part of the Tourette Health and Education Program, a program of the Tourette Association of America in partnership with the CDC. During tonight's webinar, we would be very happy to hear from you and include your voice in the conversation. You may ask questions or share comments using the question panel on the right side of your GoToWebinar player at any time. We will collect your questions and address them during the question and answer session at the end of the presentation. I would like to mention that funding for this webinar was made possible by our cooperative agreement with the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The views expressed by speakers and moderators do not necessarily reflect the official policies of the Department of Health and Human Services, nor does the mention of trade names, commercial practices, or organizations imply endorsement by the U.S. government. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our speakers this evening, Kathy Giordano and Wendy Wegman. Kathy Giordano is an education specialist for the Tourette Association of America. In this role, she has provided help, hope, and support to the Tourette Syndrome community since 2003. Specifically, Kathy provides information resources for educators, parents, and medical professionals. With a background in teaching, Kathy applies her deep knowledge to serve as a behavioral consultant with a focus on positive, proactive interventions for complex neurological disorders. She is well respected in the Tourette Syndrome community and has devoted a better part of her life to raising awareness for and combating the stigma associated with Tourette Syndrome and the common associated conditions. Wendy Wegman is an education specialist for the Tourette Association of America also. In this role, Wendy provides knowledge, awareness, and understanding of Tourette syndrome by speaking with parents and school personnel around the country to help best meet the needs of students with Tourette syndrome. Additionally, she presents nationally at school districts and education conferences. Prior to joining the association, Wendy was a classroom teacher for over 20 years. Her passion and love for serving the TS community stems from her son's personal challenges and successes with Tourette syndrome. Wendy has a BA and an MA in education from Mills College. Without further ado, Kathy and Wendy, please go ahead with your presentation.
Thanks, Angela. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining Wendy and me for this, what we feel is an important webinar. So, having spoken with thousands of parents over the years, we totally agree that the most effective way to assist students with Tourette is by having a collaborative relationship between home and school. Obviously, we understand that because of the complex nature and the confusing symptoms of Tourette, this can be oftentimes difficult. We recognize that there's no easy answers when it comes to how best to support a student with Tourette. And we've seen definitely that this results in frustration on the parts of both educators and parents. Recognizing that while it can be difficult for everyone, the one person for whom it is most difficult is the student. So we really need to focus on the needs of the student. We're hopeful that this webinar will provide you some strategies to accomplish the critical goal of developing and maintaining a collaborative relationship between the home and the school.
Great. So you're going to want to establish a positive relationship prior to school even beginning, and that positive intention that you set the tone with at the beginning of the year can carry out throughout the year. You want to get to know your child's teacher and team, and you want to let the team know that you want to work together. Kathy and I will talk more about the letters from you and your child that can go directly to your child's team members and administrators at your child's school. You'll want to either drop these off or attach them in an email before school starts. We're going to give you some pointers for that first team meeting at the beginning of the year and some suggestions for team meetings throughout the year. The Educator's Guide to Planning is an excellent resource that you're going to want to have, and you're going to want to give that to all the education professionals who work with your child. We included a link on this slide right here that you can use and to order the guides, or they're called guides or toolkits for your child's school. So if that's something that you're interested in, we highly recommend it. You can click on the link right here and order as many as you need.
Right. So introductory letters. Lots of parents have found over the years that this can be very helpful. And keeping the letters to one page is really important. So if as parents we write 3 or 4 pages or even 2 pages, it's likely that the teacher will set it aside planning to read it when they have time. But a one-page letter that is bulleted is much more inviting than a lengthy letter that they're just going to set aside and maybe never get to. So when you write the introductory letter, you want to begin with talking about the strengths and the interests of the child. The teacher, by doing that, the teacher will see immediately that the student is a typical kid. He's a typical child who happens to have Tourette. Letting them know that the child likes horses, or they like playing drums, they like the Yankees, they like building things, gardening, baking, you get the idea. Whatever the child is interested in and has a passion for, or has a strength, you really want to put that up front. Going along with that, it's really helpful if you include a small picture of the child up on the top of the page. And if you can, it's a good idea to have the picture be of the child doing one of his interests, or at least is positive. We don't recommend using the school picture, but if that's all you have at the moment, then it's okay to use that. So you're going to want to bullet some of the more important symptoms, remembering all the time that this needs to be one page. So it's kind of hard to include, but you just want to bullet some of the symptoms that are really you want them to know about immediately. For example, if the student has the eye rolling tic, it's important to know that, because otherwise the student very likely will get in trouble pretty quickly for doing this. If there are a lot of pretty normal, well, if there are any normal symptoms, but more less invasive, less disruptive symptoms, it's okay to list them on one line. So like clearing your throat, or sniffing, humming, urge to erase. But the more important ones, such as cursing or screeching, probably are better to be separate with a little tiny bit of an explanation. You can also briefly mention strategies, strategies that you have found to be helpful, such as graph paper helps keep numbers lined up in math problems. It's always, I like to have the last year teacher, the strategies that they have discovered over the year, to write something up too, or to meet with the new teacher, because why invent the wheel? Let's use the strategies that have worked in the past. So you'll want a brief statement about Tourette and about the fact that the symptoms change, because that's something that I have seen educators have a hard time with. The symptoms not only change, but they wax and wane, and it's hard to get a hold of. That they see one symptom and then it goes away and another symptom comes. So giving them a heads up about that. You're going to want to end with some contact information and a brief statement about you have a desire to be a member of the team and are able to provide additional information on Tourette. Later on, we're going to be talking about specific resources that you'll want to become familiar with, and be prepared to provide copies of these for your child's team. The child's letter it probably won't be as long, and it really needs to be in the child's words. try to avoid the temptation of making it more formal and more grammatically correct. Have it be in the child's words and even in the child's writing, because hearing from the student that he likes to cook or he likes to ride horses, you know, it's much stronger than if the parent mentions it in their letter. You do want to help the child keep the letter positive, and not bring up any issues from past teachers that might be unpleasant. Positive is always a good idea. Yep.
So the team meeting, just like Kathy said about the letters, you're going to want to start the first team meeting letting the team know your child's strengths and interests. And this is really important in establishing a connection with your child, meaning that you want the educators that are working with your child, the education professionals, to have a relationship with your child. You need to let them know that that's really important for kids with Tourette syndrome, and that connection is going to go a long way in helping the child feel comfortable in the classroom and feeling accepted. And when things are getting tough, just that child knowing that you have an interest in them and being able to connect with them in a way that is more personal is going to be really important. Many symptoms associated with tics and disinhibition need to be ignored, and it's important for you to explain how this will benefit the child with Tourette syndrome and other students as well. However, the school team will need to work with the child to help develop strategies and skills when that's necessary. So it's a difficult balance, but it's an important one. And some examples of areas that might need to be addressed, not ignored, are social skill deficits, emotional dysregulation, and symptoms that are harmful to the child or others. It's going to be important to come up with a plan to let everyone know at the school that your child has Tourette syndrome and what the symptoms are. So you may choose to have the teacher or another education professional give the letter to the cafeteria workers, the letters that Kathy talked about, the maintenance workers, and others who come into contact with your child. If an adult takes your child to the bus in the morning, the adult can hand the letter to the bus driver on the first day of school, or an older student can hand the letter to the bus driver, him or herself. But there's always so much appreciation, especially from the bus drivers, knowing ahead of time. Everybody is usually very appreciative, and it can eliminate any kind of problems down the line. And not only that, but it can actually be a tool to adults actually, you know, knowing something about your child and wanting to have a little bit of a special relationship with them. Since symptoms can vary for each student with Tourette syndrome, it's going to be important to let the team know at the first meeting what symptoms your child experiences. Disinhibition can be particularly difficult to understand and to explain. So we included a video link and an article on the slide as resources for you to help in your understanding, and in turn that can help you with explanation to the team if that's something that you feel like you need to explain about your child.
Right. So going along with that, if there is an IEP or a 504, it can be helpful before you go to the team meeting to, again, make a bulleted list of the important aspects of the IEP or the 504. Obviously, the teachers will receive copies for every child that has one, but they can be pretty lengthy and they can be pretty overwhelming. So if at the team meeting, you can just briefly summarize the important strategies that are listed and the supports that are listed. So for instance, many students with Tourette will have on the IEP or the 504, they'll have permission if their anxiety gets increased to go get a drink of water. So you'd like to mention that, because if the child all of a sudden gets up to go get a drink of water and the teachers don't know about it, there's going to be a problem. And even if the child doesn't have an IEP or a 504, it's still important to list what has been helpful in the past. It's not unusual for schools to provide some accommodation and supports without a formal plan. So letting the teachers know about these early on, and then updating them as they change, or if you get a new teacher, or mid-semester you go from art to music, make sure that everybody has a copy of these accommodations and support for the child. One of the things that Wendy and I have found to be critically important for students is for the student to know that there's a designated person that they can speak to, and that this person is trusted, and that this person will not attempt to talk them out of their feelings or their perceptions. You want to get a kid with Tourette angry, tell them that they're wrong. So a safe person that they can go to and they can talk about what's going on without knowing that this person isn't going to argue with them or try to talk them out of their perception, even if their perception is different from other people's perceptions. Generally, kids with Tourette syndrome, they're really, you can't look at it as if they're lying. It's just that their perception is different. And having a safe person to confide in can really make a huge difference for the child. So the team meetings are a really good time to let everybody know that the Tourette Association of America, we offer free in-services, both in person and virtually. We also can be available for team meetings. So if the team has questions, we don't, during the team meetings, we don't tell the teachers what to do or what not to do. You want to approach the team and say that there are people at the Tourette Association that would be happy to answer your questions. That goes a long ways, better than us telling them what to do or what not to do. So in addition to the teachers' toolkits that we highly recommend that you share with the teachers, you also might want to bring a couple of resources, not a lot. When my son was in school, I tended to overwhelm teachers with too much information, and that's a bad idea. Bring a couple copies, and they can ask for more, or you can provide more as it goes along, but try not to give them a ton of information right at the beginning. And I think two of the resources that we've listed here are two of the resources that we hear back from parents and from teachers that are the most important. The red flags, identifying common educational difficulties, as well as Tourette is more than tics. And you might want to highlight the sections that are important for your child. The red flags is pretty short, but the Tourette is more than tics, you really would want to highlight because it's pretty lengthy, and having them skip over what they don't need to read can be helpful.
So a communication plan. It's really important that communication all year is timely, so there aren't any surprises for either the school or for you at home. Meaning that's a back and forth communication throughout the year. And I know how difficult it can be as a parent to not have information communicated to you for a while and then to find out something had been going on. So, let the team know at the beginning of the year and, establish a good communication plan that may change throughout the year, but very important. It's really helpful for parents and the school if the team assigns a designated person that you can communicate and they communicate with you. This helps to avoid the problem of everyone thinking that someone else communicated a problem or a success. And then the problems in particular can build up, just like I mentioned, before the family has a chance to help or to intervene. So this won't be the only person that you communicate with. It just, there might be times that it'll be helpful to speak with somebody else on the team, or send an email and make sure you include everybody on the team in. But it's just really helpful to avoid those kind of problems and to kind of streamline the communication that comes home and that you make to the school. So the other thing, emails, really important, great idea to keep emails and notes as brief as possible. Be careful when you're communicating by email. Anything that can be misinterpreted with tone or content might be better done with a brief phone call to the school. It's important to communicate that you're giving an account of your child's perception of an event. So if there's something that happens, it's important to let the school know that you understand it's your child's perception. But we know that, and we want the school to know as well, that a child's perception is their reality. And that we also realize that it might be different than the perception of others involved in the situation or the problem. So just that whole notion of perception is really important in communication and in addressing a problem, that everybody understands it's the child's reality, but at the same time, realizes that it is the child's perception. It's important that everyone knows when difficulties occur. However, both home and school need to recognize that Tourette is one of the most complex disorders, and no one has all the answers. So good communication between home and school typically results in the sharing of positive and proactive strategies that are significantly more effective than the typical approach of rewards and consequences. So it's important to let the school know what worked at home, and it's also important to let the school know that positive proactive strategies that help kids learn how to move forward are going to be more effective than the approach of reward and consequence. Let the team know that you appreciate emails that are limited to a particular success or positive event for your child. So these emails aren't going to contain anything negative. So it's just going to be a quick note, a quick email that says, social studies class was so much fun today because, Amy knew so much about the Civil War and she had so much to say. She was so excited, she contributed, and we all learned so much from her. I just wanted you to know what a great class we had today, or what a great day it was. And then that's it. Let them know that that's going to be important for you up front. And same thing, same thing with home to school, that, you can send a quick email and say that, Cameron told me, what a great time he had on the field trip. Thank you for making it special with him. He said he was chosen to do, something or another. I just wanted you to know how excited he was, and I appreciate your effort in helping him have a successful field trip. So just something quick like that, back and forth, is going to help maintain the positive relationship. These positives are important for the relationship, and when they don't include any negatives from the class, from the day, or the event, they have a positive effect on how you feel as a parent and how you feel about your child's school experience in general. So again, let the school know that that's going to be important for you.
Okay, going along with the communication plan, we have found that it's really important to include the student in the plans, and we're always pretty surprised when students aren't included in the plan. I have been at way too many tables where we adults think we come up with this perfect plan, and then we bring the child in and say, look kid, here's the plan, and the kid says, oh, this is stupid, I'm not going to do it. Involving the child in the plan first can be so much better and more likely to be successful. We too often don't ask the child what might be helpful. Instead, we kind of tell them what we expect or what they're supposed to do. So even for very young students, I've seen first graders and second graders come up with great ideas and having different kind of communication plans. It also, helping the child be involved also helps with self-advocacy. So attending IEP and 504 meetings is a really good way to introduce the child to advocacy skills, and as they get older, to develop those skills. The very young students, you're probably only going to want to have them attend at the very beginning, or introduce themselves and say something that they have spoken with you about prior to the meeting. And it's also understandable if the child is very shy or frightened. But still, just having them come to the meeting and introduce themselves can go a long ways. Just having the members, all the members of the team might not even know your child. So having him there can be helpful. As a child gets older, it's a good idea to have them involved more and more. But I'm never really very comfortable with a child being present if the meeting is negative. As the child gets older, I do think they can stay at the meeting longer. But if it's really going to turn negative and not be a positive experience for the child, then you probably don't want that to occur. Unless it's a suspensions hearings and those type of meetings, almost always the child is required to attend. But in a regular team meeting or an IEP meeting or a 504 meeting, they aren't required to be there, but it's a good idea to get them used to doing that. Also, the child may want to present to the class about Tourette. We have found that when a student does talk to his classmates, it's really empowering. And oftentimes, bullying issues are reduced. I know a lot of people are concerned that if the other kids know about the Tourette, that teasing is going to increase. On the whole, it's been our experience that it's reduced, because when the children know what's happening, they're typically going to accept it a whole lot better and not be teasing and bullying them so much. We also have trained youth ambassadors, and youth ambassadors are trained by us to go to schools and talk to classmates. So you might be able to have a youth ambassador go talk to the classmates, as well as your child may want to join in as well. And also your child may want to be trained as a youth ambassador when they get to be the right age. Is it 12?
12 and up, I think.
Okay, 12 to 17?
Yeah.
It's a wonderful experience, so you might want to keep that in mind too. And for more information on how to find out if there is an ambassador, or how to find out about the youth ambassador training, contact the Tourette Association directly, or even contact your local Tourette Association chapter. So as you discuss the communication plan, you're going to want to remind everybody that Tourette symptoms are, by its very nature, going to wax and wane. Therefore, the plan may need to be tweaked as the year goes on, and you're going to want to talk about that up front, so nobody's surprised when you come in and say, you know, I think we need to relook at this plan a little bit.
So this slide is pretty simple, but Kathy and I both thought it was really important to mention that saying thank you goes a long way in keeping communication open and positive for the school. Just like I talked about, those quick emails or notes that can make you feel great about your child coming home, a quick email or note can make an educational professional feel acknowledged. And, you know, we appreciate those positive acknowledgments for our time and efforts. And certainly many of us who have children with Tourette put a lot of time and effort into the school and the plans for school. Education professionals, they appreciate being acknowledged for their time and effort as well. It just keeps it just keeps the communication flowing and it keeps things more positive, because there could be circumstances that aren't as positive. And when you do this throughout the year, it makes those situations so much easier to contend with and to communicate about. So send a quick note or email when your child tells you something sweet or positive that someone does for them. That's all. Yeah. Okay. Next slide.
Okay.
Oh, this one is mine.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, I'll do this one.
Okay.
So Tourette, Kathy and I encourage you to use our website to watch videos and read articles. Familiarizing yourself with the symptoms and the supports that match your child's needs is going to give you the confidence to speak out about your child's needs, for sure. And there's information about addressing symptoms and what may appear to be purposeful behaviors. This is going to help you feel comfortable addressing your child's needs in an area that can be a lot more difficult to explain and contend with. You'll feel a lot more confident having the information, you know, kind of under your belt. And Kathy and I do hear all the time that, you know, from educators, you know, we're just trying to figure out if this was a symptom of Tourette or a purposeful behavior. Mm-hmm. So, you know, being able to kind of be aware of that and understand the symptoms is going to be really important. Kathy mentioned local chapters when she talked about the youth ambassadors. Local chapters, support groups, and providers are all listed on our website, and we have those links for you. And we have links, you know, a couple links on this slide here that may be some good resources as well. So please, you know, use the links if you need to find, if you have a local chapter, local support groups, and also providers like neurologists, psychologists, psychiatrists are listed on our website.
Right. And you know, I'll piggyback on something Wendy said about knowing about the symptoms, particularly the ones that the teachers ask, is this really a symptom or is this purposeful behavior? It's nice for you to have the information so that you can help explain it, but it's also helpful to make a copy of some of the resources that we have and give it to the teacher.
Yes, absolutely.
So also along with the website, we have, and we're going to have more, but we do have some resources that talk about the federal laws and how the federal laws impact students with Tourette. I've listed some links there that will get you to some of the sites about the federal laws. And like I said, we're working this year on bumping that up, and are hopefully going to have more information on the website about how we can use the federal laws to help kids with Tourette. And being aware of the federal laws is really important, because you'd be surprised how many of the schools aren't really familiar with the laws. But I would also encourage you to check out your state education department for their take on the laws too. But stay tuned to that, because we will have more of that upcoming on our new and improved websites. There's also a lot of resources regarding what's an IEP, what's a 504, what's the difference between an IEP and a 504. We have several resources on that, as well as an excellent resource on being prepared for a school meeting, step by step, how to prepare before you go to the meeting. So there really are a lot of really good resources. There's also resources written for educators. There's one that is a guide for educators on developing plans. I would encourage you to read the things that the educators are reading. I know for sure that the educators are reading what the parents are reading, so it's a good idea for you also to know what the educators will know. And there really are some really nice resources on different suggestions for different, not just the tics, but a lot of the co-occurring disorders and what kind of supports can be provided for them. We also, the Tourette Association has a resource and information provider at the office. So if you really have questions, don't hesitate to contact us. And there is, on the website, you will find ways to contact us and ask us questions. And I know our resource and information person gets back to, and Wendy and I try to get back to you as quickly as possible too. And lots of times that will involve a phone conversation to answer specific questions. Also, as we stated before, the Tourette Association provides the free resources, the consultations, and the trainings. And so you can find information about that on our website, and that it is all free thanks to a collaborative relationship with the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Additional thoughts?
Okay, I think the first one's mine.
Mm-hmm.
So as parents of kids with Tourette, we recognize the frustration. And sometimes, you know, we will get angry at the school. But we both feel it's really important to try really hard not to let the child know that you're angry and frustrated with the school. Consider how difficult it is for the child to go to school every day, particularly if things are not going well for the child. On top of that, if they know that there's anger between the home and the school, that's only going to increase the child's anxiety and make it even more difficult at school. But on the other hand, even if they think, even if it's not true, but even if they think the parents are really working together to try to overcome something that is causing some great anxiety and some difficulties in school, they're going to have a better time going to school. It's going to be so much more helpful for them knowing that the school and the parents are working together to help get past this difficulty. Okay, so it's also, it helps the child. These are kind of hard things, and you can't be successful all the time. But being honest about the symptoms, I just think that's so incredibly important, because children, if they see their parents being honest about the symptoms, it tells them that they're not ashamed of the child. They're not ashamed of the fact that they have Tourette. Too often we hear that parents don't want their child to appear to be different, and so are encouraged to have the child leave the class when tics become active. I know that the Tourette Association, we used to really encourage that. Now, I would say it's important if the symptoms are really extremely disruptive, or if they're causing the child to have the anxiety and the anger increase. It's a nice strategy to know that you can go someplace to remain emotionally regulated and get that back under control. But for clearing your throat, for making animal noises, if the people know why the tics are happening, it's not something to be ashamed of. So we would encourage, rather than trying to hide the symptoms, to be very forthright. The child is a child first, and just happens to have Tourette. It's important that they recognize that Tourette is only a part of who they are, and that they have significant strengths and abilities that are more important.
So as your child's parent or caregiver, you're going to be the one that's going to be at your child's side throughout their school career. So you are your child's advocate. and the most important person. So learning all this information and getting to know as much as you can about their symptoms, but also maybe about symptoms that may appear later or may co-occur with Tourette, even if they aren't something that, that your child is experiencing. While you're in the school, will likely have to make accommodations specifically for your child. Be sure to realize that challenges are learning experiences as well. So there will be challenges along the way for your child, and they will help him or her grow and learn. So try to embrace, that as much as possible. There's going to be difficult situations when you need to talk through problems or issues at school with another trusted adult before talking with the school. It just helps to kind of get it out there, and it helps you to kind of streamline your thoughts and talk to other people before you talk to the school. Trust your instincts. Ask yourself if this is a one-time event that may have been handled well and no longer needs to be addressed, or is there an ongoing problem that you can plan to address by setting up a professional meeting? Be sure to bring notes with you to the meetings. Even if you need to read your bullet points, you know that you said what you needed to say in a professional manner that can suggest and leave the door open for collaboration. And we can't leave the meeting today without mentioning Ross Green, our very favorite. So get to know Ross Green. His website is Lives in the Balance. There's some wonderful 3-minute videos, great suggestions for you working with your child at home, and great suggestions for helping the school work with children. Mostly, it really is for all children. Ross Green focuses on children with neurological disorders, not Tourette specific, but Kathy and I have found him to be an invaluable resource for helping kids with Tourette syndrome at school and at home.
You know what, I want to jump in again because you mentioned that there's some videos and some brief videos. The website also has many, many brief videos that have been made by professionals, by other parents, and to watch some of the brief videos on different topics, I think it can be really helpful for a parent.
Yes, absolutely. So we are just about done with this webinar, and we're going to open it up for questions, but we really want to thank you for joining us. And oh, I'm sorry, that is really spelled very incorrectly, but you can contact Acting, the TAA, and don't hesitate to reach out to us for support. There's a link in the slides that you'll receive for email. You can send an email, and there's the phone number that you can call with any questions or anything that you need.
Sounds good. You can tell how tired we are with the contacting Acting.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of this so that we don't have to keep looking at that. So Angela, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kathy and Wendy. So as they mentioned, we're now going to begin answering some questions that were submitted. Actually, we don't have any yet, so I'm encouraging everyone that's listening to please ask some questions. You can still ask. Kathy and Wendy have the time to take some questions that you may have thought of. If we are unable to get to everyone's questions tonight, here at the Tourette Association, we do have a full-time information and referral staff who are more than happy to answer your questions as well. If you email support@tourette.org or give us a call at 1-888-4-TOURETTE. So we don't have any questions yet. Let's see if some come through, Kathy and Wendy, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Like we said all along, I mean, they may think of questions later on, or maybe the question is too lengthy to add here, so feel free to just contact the Tourette Association with any questions that you have.
Yes, okay, so we have a question. What do you suggest to do when school staff are resistant to learn about or take info about Tourette syndrome?
I guess I'll take that one. It's not unusual for that to occur. I think it's important that we parents always remember that teachers, educators are not taught about Tourette in college. We are finding that they are learning a lot about autism, and unfortunately, too often supports for autism are used for kids with Tourette. So if you're finding someone resistant, we have found that by offering the team meeting, usually we'll open it up or give them the red flags, give them something brief. But offering a team meeting with people that we're both educators, we've been doing this for years and years, and tell them that we just want to answer their questions. So hopefully that will help.
Okay, so a couple people have asked if the slides from the webinar will be available. Kathy and Wendy, if you will just email me the slides, I am more than happy to email them to people. My email is angela.sullivan@tourette.org. Please email me if you would like a copy, and I would be more than happy to send them to you. Okay, so we have a couple more questions that came in. Should breaks be added for kids throughout the day because of their tics?
So Kathy and I talk a lot about breaks during the day, and it really depends. It depends on the child, the age of the child, and it depends on how the student is going to kind of cope with the breaks. So there are students that need breaks, and they take them when they need them, and that's part of their plan, and they take their break and they come back to the room. There are other students who, you know, have a lot of anxiety about being at school and being in a classroom. So given a break, then they don't really want to go back to the classroom, you know, after taking the break. So it's really important that the breaks are structured for kids that need them. It's always important that they have them. It's important that they let you know if it's something that they need, that they're part of that plan to have the breaks and to take them. I found what often happens is when kids get more comfortable in the classroom and get more comfortable with school, often they don't take the breaks as much as they used to. So it really depends on the student, and it really depends on you know, on the plan for the student, how they're used, and how they're needed. You know, is it anxiety? Do they need the break because of anxiety? Do they need the break because of their tics? You know, do they need a movement break? Can some of those breaks happen in the classroom so that they're not, you know, leaving and coming back? So those are all kind of questions to ask. It's important to ask those questions as you know, the team is planning how to address having the breaks.
Yeah, I would also add that Wendy said that the child needs to be in control and when the breaks happen, so they can give a secret signal. The teacher and the student can have secret signals to say when I would like to take a break, and yes, it's okay for you to take a break. What generally students don't like is when a teacher will say, you need to take a break, because then it turns a positive into a punitive. If a child is told to take a break, they see that as being punished. So everything with Tourette is so complicated, and it so depends on the kid. So yes, breaks can be good for some kids, and we have found that even movement sometimes will change the chemistry in the brain and help reduce symptoms. So like Wendy said, sometimes the breaks can be taken in the classroom.
Great. So we had a ton more questions come in. So here's another one for you. My son is entering middle school and will have at least 8 teachers. What is the best approach for creating a team this coming school year?
Well, I assume that there will be a team. You would want to maybe talk to the principal or talk to an administrator and find out if they have regular team meetings, and request that, well, at the beginning of this presentation, we talked about the introductory letters, and so you could give the principal or some administrator the introductory letters and give them to all the people that are on the team. But then also request that there be a brief team meeting so that you can be introduced to the team and give them some information. I used to be a middle school teacher. I was always a member of a team. I think almost through high school, kids have teams. So,
so the team could be composed of just the teachers if the student doesn't have an IEP and
Right.
doesn't receive other services. But if the student receives other services, or for you know, obvious very good reasons you would like a counselor to be part of the team, then everyone on the team could include, you know, the resource room teacher, the counselor, you know, other people that work with the student.
yeah, that's a good point. The team may be only the teachers. But hopefully somebody like a counselor or a school psychologist might want to join the team if you're going to be there. And particularly if we have a team meeting by phone with them, it might be nice to have other people available. But yeah, that's a good question. And I think it's important that 8th graders, you do introduce them to your son ahead of time.
Great. So the next question we have, what is the best classification on an IEP for children with Tourette?
In my opinion, the only classification is other health impaired. Back in when IDEA was reauthorized in 2004, the Tourette Association, we worked very, very, very hard to get Tourette listed under other health impaired. I know that there are some schools that will have multiple disabilities as a category, and you know, I mean, if the mother or the parents are comfortable with that, having Tourette and ADD and sensory, you know, maybe having multiple, but truly, the federal law says that other health impaired, and I can, there is information on the website. If somebody wants to email me, I can send it to them. It'll be easy.
Okay. So we have another question. Can you give some suggestions or thoughts for a student who has significant vocal tics and both teachers and students find the sounds disruptive? Both breaks do not necessarily help the tics.
What doesn't necessarily help the tics?
Breaks.
Oh,
Giving
breaks.
them a break.
You know, I always say disruption is in the eye of the beholder. If I hear a dripping faucet, that is extraordinarily disruptive to me. So I'd want to know that the vocal tics truly are disruptive. And if they truly are disruptive, there are a couple of options. There is something called a steno mask that is a sound muffler that kids can keep in their pocket and when they feel the urge to do a vocal tic. Most kids don't like that, so that usually isn't very successful. Another option is to have a room available, a space available where the child can go to and be in the classroom virtually. So say that they do pretty well in the morning, but then in the afternoon their vocal tics get louder. Setting this up in a way that the child sees this as a positive and not punitive is critically important. To have their own office space where they can do the vocal tics privately, but also be connected to the classrooms via, you know, GoToMeeting or any of those websites.
I also wanted to add that you know, when we talked about the child presenting, the students do need to know about the Tourette, and in this case they may, but I just want to mention that it usually provides a lot of relief and understanding for the students when there are a lot of vocal tics going on, for them to understand Tourette and what is really going on with the child. So if that's something that hasn't been done, you know, we highly suggest some education for the students. There's a lot of great books on Amazon, children's books now. I don't know how old the student is. For older kids, there are even chapter books for older kids that are very well written to help with understanding. And like we suggested, the youth ambassadors, if there's any in your area, to come out and explain to the class, and understanding, with the teachers as well. Just can provide, and it doesn't make everything go away and better. I wish we had the magic wand, but those are all some suggestions.
And I'd be interested to know, when are the vocal tics? Are they all day long? Are they in a particular classroom? Are they after lunch? Are they before lunch? Has the child been evaluated by an occupational therapist to see if there's some sort of sensory thing going on, and a strategy that the occupational therapist might come up with so that the child can, rather than making the loud vocalizations, they might be able to do something different that will satisfy their urge and their tic, that won't be as disruptive.
Nice. Okay, we have time for a few more questions. So you mentioned college. Is it best to go through the special needs student division? She's not sure what it would necessarily be called, of the college, to coordinate some of these needs and accommodations?
Yeah, a lot of colleges do have, and like she suggested, every college kind of calls them something different, disability office. There's a lot of different names for the offices at the college, but yeah, I think it's really important for the student to go and talk to the office. By the time a student gets to college, the colleges are more interested in having the student self-advocate than having the parent come in and tell them what the student needs. So I would practice with the student. I would encourage the child before college on how to approach the disability office and what to talk to them about. Obviously, colleges don't have to follow the IEPs, but a lot of colleges, public colleges, do need to have 504 accommodations. They may not follow all of the accommodations that were done in school, but you can talk to these people, and they will help the professors and the instructors understand what kind of supports need to be provided. And this is getting more and more popular as more and more kids with disabilities are going to colleges.
Great. Okay, so the next question, our go-to person that was established as part of the team was released at the end of the school year. This leaves our child with a void in his plan in the first day of school. He is aware and his tics have been building as the time arrives to start school again. Any ideas how we can relieve some of his stress knowing this?
Sure, I think, it seems obvious, but finding another go-to person. Who else does the child feel comfortable with? Sometimes if it's, if it was a counselor or, was a principal, a resource room teacher, sometimes it can just be the teacher from the year before, and even the teacher from the year before is teaching their class and they don't have a lot of time. They get to come in there and water the plants or feed the fish or, read to the younger students, some kind of a job like that. I would suggest being creative and listening to the child and seeing if right away that you can come up with someone that the child feels comfortable with. If the child can't come up with someone, perhaps there is somebody that the family feels comfortable with, that they can have a discussion about that with the school and the family, that that the symptoms are getting worse and it's going to be really important to find somebody new. Change like that is transition. It can be very difficult to lose a trusted individual, for your child at school.
Yeah, and I would want to I would want to talk to a principal or somebody that is at the school during the summer about this, and that it's important that the child knows prior to going to school that there is going to be somebody. You said that his symptoms are increasing because he knows that his safe person is gone. Well, if you can develop a safe person prior to the first day of school, hopefully that will decrease some of the anxiety and hopefully some of the symptoms.
All right, we'll take a few more questions. So this woman says, I generally agree that children benefit when they see the school as working together with parents. A team approach is best. But if school staff are clearly unkind or unhelpful, I think the child's hurt should be validated and parents be seen to advocate for them at school. What do you suggest when the school just doesn't deserve to be supported in front of the child?
You know, this is not a question that we've never heard before, unfortunately. You know, again, I think I might try a team meeting because I've been presenting for over 30 years, and one of the places that I was most not believed was at my son's school. So when you have somebody, an outside person, talk to the team, and hopefully there's one person, be it the nurse, be it the school psychologist, be it a counselor. I mean, I'm hoping that there's one person at the school that you feel is on your side. And I agree that the child should see that the parent is there for him. You know, if things are really, and they can be really horrible because schools don't know what to do. It's all about awareness. And so, yeah, I do think it's important that the child sees that the parents are going to advocate for him. They are going to support him. But if you can get a team meeting to talk to either Wendy or me, you know, maybe that might be helpful.
Yeah, and you know, and just to reiterate what Kathy said, you know, obviously supporting your child first and foremost, if they feel hurt, if they're, you know, just feeling really bad about some things that happened at school. But like Kathy said, I always suggest, and I've had to use this in my own life, finding one person that you can go to if there is somebody at your school, whether it's a vice principal, a counselor, a particular teacher, somebody in central office, somebody who will listen and support you, and you know, in trying to build something back for the child. So the child sees that the situation, you know, has not been good, but how can we move forward, and you know, and what can we do in moving forward, rather than just being stuck.
Okay, I'm going to take one more question. My school hasn't contacted me for a team meeting yet. A transitional team met at the end of the school year last year. How early is too early to ask for a meeting?
You can ask for a meeting if your school is on summer break now. You can let them know that you want a meeting early on. Sometimes you need to send a reminder because people get busy and don't remember. Sometimes schools will have a meeting before school starts, but generally speaking, a lot of teachers and education professionals don't come back to school until right before school starts, so time is limited. So often they'll want to meet the first few weeks of school, within the first few weeks, and usually that can be okay as well. But if you ask and they say we'll definitely arrange that, and you don't hear back, don't you know, hesitate to reach out again, and just make sure you get it set up as soon as possible at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, and as far as the team meetings where either Wendy or I would be on the phone, I think sometimes it is important to wait a little bit so that they actually have some experience working with a child and have some questions. And everybody knows a kid with Tourette, lots of times there's a honeymoon period at the beginning of the school. So, you know, it may be a good idea to have the team meeting with Wendy and me if it's necessary, like, you know, more into the school year so that they actually have some questions to ask.
Alrighty, that's all the questions that we had. If anyone has any further questions or would like some further clarification on the questions they did ask, please feel free to reach out to us and we'd be more than happy to answer. Thank you both, Kathy and Wendy, for an excellent presentation. This is all the time we have for our webinar. Once the webinar is closed, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we would really appreciate it if you would complete that and provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view our recording of tonight's webinar. Additionally, the webinar will be posted on the Tourette Association YouTube channel for those who were unable to participate today. We encourage you to reach out to us on social media about this webinar or for any other ideas and suggestions you may have. On behalf of the Tourette Association, thank you again for joining us and taking the time to view our presentation. Have a great evening.